Great news. The football schedule is out. Houston's winning at least 10 games.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Coogs, the daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth. And whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to stop by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. But you make your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Cougs. Making Locked On Sports Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network in the world. If you enjoy the conversation and you don't know what to say, tell us in the comments down below. Okay, potential snow days happening soon across the country. What day of the week would you rather? Is it a Monday, a Friday, maybe break up in the middle week of a Wednesday? What day of the week would you like to take off if given the opportunity for an extra day off in the middle of a week randomly? Now, I can't wait to talk to you about the Houston Cougar football schedule is out. I want to talk in the first segment how I'm excited about the schedule for Houston. I think it works out very, very well. In the second segment, I want to do some comparisons of the October and November stretches because I think that they each present somewhat interesting challenges, and I think it's a worth like which one's going to be more challenging. I also want to investigate the question in the final segment about if this has to be another 10-win season, as Houston comes off of a season where they went 10-3. But first, the schedule itself. Houston opens with Oregon State at home on September 5th. They then have Southern at home as well, and they have to head off to Lubbock on the 19th of September for the first Big 12 game, also the first road game. Then they go from Lubbock all the way to Georgia to play Georgia Southern before coming back home to play Central Florida on October 3rd. So that's in their first 5 games, 2 road games, 2 conference games, kind of the same kind of split, though, where you have 2 non-con, 1 con, and then back to it, right? Then after Central Florida on the 3rd of October, they head up to Manhattan, the Little Apple, to play Kansas State. Then they come back home for Oklahoma State before heading out to Salt Lake City for Utah. That rounds out October because October 31st is their bye week. That's Halloween. No more Halloween game. And then you had to come home to play Cincinnati before going on 2 back-to-back road games at Colorado, at West Virginia, and you round out the season with a home game versus Baylor. 6 home games, 6 road games. In conference, you have 4 home games and 5 road games because that lingering Georgia Southern game scheduled as a road game. I'm not going to go too far into that today. Maybe over the summer we'll complain about that some more. But the schedule is very, very favorable. You've got, yes, you have to go to Lubbock. Sure, they won the conference last year. Granted. You have no BYU anywhere, no Arizona State anywhere, no Iowa State anywhere. Those are the other 3 teams that have played in the conference championship game the last 2 seasons, and you will not see them. No Arizona, who finished ranked last season, and your non-conference games are all non-Power 4 teams because of the way the whole Pac-12 fallout happened, and you got Oregon State in the whole deal, right? Now, I think this is a very favorable schedule for a lot of reasons. I said I think they can win at least 10 games in the schedule very, very realistically. I would also point out that with the most difficult game at the present moment, if you ask someone in Las Vegas, the most difficult game in the schedule is going to Lubbock on September 19th. If I had to pick a week to go to Lubbock, it would probably be the earliest possible week. You're theoretically catching a new quarterback and a lot of new players in their first real test of a game themselves. Tech's first 2 games are Abilene Christian and at Oregon State. You have a nice comparison with the Oregon State game right there, right? You're catching them theoretically in their first real test of their own. Admittedly, it's at their place, but you got to go to their place because they came to yours last year. So you've also got to, factor in the fact that this is so early in the season. They may be sorting things out. Who knows how the Sorsby experiment will be going? People are really high on him. I also would point out that I was never as high on him, so maybe that's where things may, even their way out. I do think though that if I had to play in Lubbock at Texas Tech, from a easiest game to win perspective of making that a winnable game, the earlier in the season, the better. Feel like you're more likely to be healthy, more likely to have tricks up your sleeve, etc. I think there's all those kinds of things working in your favor. Also, should point out that one thing not working in Houston's favor this year is for everyone in college football, it's a one bye week kind of year. That has to do with when Labor Day falls and stuff like that. Typically, changes what Saturdays are actually available for the season between Labor Day and Thanksgiving and all that kind of stuff, right? It's Halloween weekend, which I think is funny after all the talk last year about having to play the day after Halloween at 11 a.m. and how that affected the crowd and this and that and the other thing. Hey, just no Halloween game, not happening, can't be possible. Now, presently, every game is scheduled for a Saturday. And I think that that's something people are getting really excited really fast because last year Houston had a large number of games that were not on a Saturday. They had four games not on a Saturday, one on a Thursday, 3 on Fridays. It was not the most ideal for like your classic college football tailgate. I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news, but as of the present moment, no games for next year are scheduled on non-Saturdays for any team. Those movements will happen in like March, April, May by TV contracts and TV deals. And I wonder if one or two of these games may get moved to a Friday. I don't think anything will get moved to a Thursday. That was particularly odd. But I will say, Eddie Nunez has pushed for having Saturday games, having Saturday game environments, and he wants to, have that as much as possible. He's also pointed at having more of those in a row would theoretically build. You can kind of build from one to the next. I also think that it's the kind of thing that's gotten better over the course of time. The Tech game last year being sold out was obviously a big deal. It's also two ranked teams it was a big deal at the time because of how good the teams had started the year. And an in-state rival in Southwest Conference days and right? As you look at this, though, the games I'm looking at, like off the top of my head, that could get moved around would be right there, smack dab in the middle of October. So Houston hosts Oklahoma State on October 17th. Yes, October 17th. Right now, that same week, as far as Big 12 TV providers go, you've got BYU hosting Notre Dame. You've got Arizona State and Texas Tech, Kansas and Kansas State, TCU and Baylor. I could very easily see from a TV window perspective them putting it in, hey, we can go 11 a.m. Saturday or Friday night. You can find ways to move around it, but those other games may have more like TV viewership kind of things. As you get closer to mid-October, maybe Houston could get flexed if both Houston and Oklahoma State are having great years. But ultimately, that's a game I could see being moved a little bit, right? It could also be just 11 a.m. on Saturday because the evening games will be rivalry games or whatever, right? And Arizona State, Texas Tech is like the last two teams to win the conference or whatever, right? The other weekend is Houston and Utah because the other big games that weekend in the Big 12 for Big 12 TV partners are Kansas State at Arizona State. That is also going to be a West Coast or Western time zone kind of thing. And that may be 2 night games, and then maybe try and put one on Friday, one on Saturday, or it might just be like the Houston-Utah game is at 9:30 at night Central Time or something. The other thing is, though, I don't think they'll be at like 7 and 9 because Texas Tech at Cincinnati is the same weekend. Sorsby going back to Cincinnati, that there's going to be a whole thing there too, right? And so I could see them drumming that up for some TV money when to put that at like the 7 o'clock time slot, and then working around, okay, which West Coast game you put after that, or which one you put on Friday night, and all that kind of stuff, right? All of that said, I don't hate any of this for Houston. If I'm looking as a fan, best road trip, I know it's not going to be the most exciting game, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Oregon State was more fun than I thought it would be last year. In that perspective. But the roadie is going to be Georgia Southern. You're, an hour from Savannah, an hour and a half from Augusta, 2.5 hours from Charleston. Not a common trip. You don't get to go there very often in this conference. It's early. It's, coming off the Tech win, you might get a cheap ticket because who knows how the game's going to go. I do think, though, if you beat Texas Tech, you could also still get a cheap ticket because the Georgia Southern fans might not feel like showing up as much, right? And also, for what it's worth, it's a part of the country that this conference doesn't get to play in a whole lot. That being said, you also have road trips to Salt Lake City and Colorado on the schedule, and I just don't have them as high on my list because those are more regular road trips in this conference. You can get out there to see Houston play the Utes or Houston play the Buffs every year in something. So it's less like new, but I would point out like that's a very aesthetically pleasing road trip as well. So we'll talk throughout that part of the schedule and fandom part of it as the season goes on. I really want to look at like comparing October and November because those are the meat of the season. You know who you are by that point. Those actually have very different challenges as months of the schedule. And I don't know which one of them will define the season, but I do know one of them will define the season. But before we get too far, today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at TurboTax because tax season does not have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax make it easier than ever to just hand things off and move about your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without any of the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to find and figure out your forms, you can meet local TurboTax experts or connect online. That's more your speed. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing that an expert is handling it for you. Now, for a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If TurboTax expert didn't file you last year, just file by February 28th. All taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. Parker just locked on Coogs here, and thank you for making Locked on Coogs your first listen of the day and making Locked on Sports Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in the world. Now, if you enjoy Locked on Cougs, you can't get enough, you just want more, I got to tell you about the Everydayer All Access program. You get access to ad-free audio, invite to the members-only Discord server, all access episodes of Locked on Cougs, one-on-one texting with me, a merch store, all kinds of ways to get more Locked on Cougs. We've talked to them about like comparing where Houston's going versus what Indiana just built over on that side of things and all kinds of fun like it's not quite as nitty gritty over there. It's a little more fun, a little more conversational. Get to go back and forth. Can't wait to talk to you in that neck of the woods. If you want to be an everyday all access member and want to learn more about it, go to lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer. Or if you just heard enough about it, you want to go sign up right away, go to lockedoncougs.supercast.com. All right, October, November, the meat of football season. They offer interestingly different challenges for Houston, and I'm not sure which is more challenging. Last year, I'd have told you it was October, and it ended up being November. I was wrong. I will admit when I'm wrong plenty of the times. People don't listen every day. If you're an everydayer, you know I admit when I'm wrong. But I will admit when I'm wrong. I thought October was more challenging. November ended up being. This year, as I look at the schedule, I can't quite at this point make a clear judgment. Right now, I have to watch a few games in September. Maybe it'll be more obvious. But right now, as I see it, in October, you've got 4 games. You have UCF to open up the month. Year 2 of Scott Frost there. Fun but competitive game there at their place a year ago. Are they better in year 2 under that coach? Same way Houston was better in year 2 under Fritz, right? That whole thing, space race, that's right there. At Kansas State, which I still am trying to figure out what to make of the trip to Kansas State in Manhattan, Kansas. Look, daunting road trip before hard place to play. New coaching staff up there, new coaching staff down here. A lot of excitement around what's going on up there, but a lot of excitement going on what's going on down here. A program that's had a lot of great history at Kansas State, but also I think we've understood what Houston's been building to get ready for that trip here in Houston. I can't tell what to make of that Kansas State game. The 3rd game of October is hosting Oklahoma State. They have a whole new everything. They are North Texas North. The Oklahoma State mean green. North Texas was good last year and would have beaten some Big 12 teams as a high-end Group of 5 team. Sure. Is that going to work in year 1 for Morris and them up at Oklahoma State? Can Houston match that? Is Houston ahead of that, right? Is it the kind of thing where Oklahoma State is going to be able to beat a lot of Big 12 teams, but not some of these ranked ones like I'd imagine Houston will be at that point, right? Um, Look, you get them at home at least. That's part of it. That's a good thing, and that's great, right? Utah on the road as a last game of that month, even though it's the 24th, because remember you have a bye week on Halloween. Um, Utah's an interestingly tough matchup too. Houston did beat them 2 years ago when they were down, and Houston's never lost to Utah, 5-0 all time. Utah has in the last decade been a usually pretty good football team. It's a really tough place to play. It's got good home field advantage. It's got the elevation. It's got the weather. It's got all that. Um, but also, they're going through monumental changes as far as, they kicked out Whittingham and brought in their coach in waiting and did all that. They lost a lot of players in the portal because of that, but they didn't lose Dampier, their quarterback, and they knew their head coach in waiting was going to be their guy. So maybe that's challenging. Maybe it's a good test. We'll see, right? That's October. You get the bye week at Halloween, and then go to November. Cincinnati, ranked team for parts of your last year, but also lost their quarterback. At Colorado, I feel like they will be desperate in a lot of ways. Deion Sanders trying to keep this thing going up there. I also point out like that Julian Lewis guy was a high-end recruit for a reason. He was super young last year. Houston didn't even really see him, right? They had a whole different quarterback setup last year. Maybe Julian Lewis gets it going. Is that a more challenging game this year? They have a bunch of transfers that they always get a bunch of transfers. They're high-end recruits. Our own Demetrius Pancake Hunter's up there. Like who knows how that all shakes out up there for them. Then you have at West Virginia for back-to-back road games. Also should be challenging to go from one end of the country in Colorado out to the other in West Virginia. Tough place to play, great fans, great environment, obviously. I would also point out that, they are maybe not win the Big 12 kind of good in year two under Rich Rodriguez. They're probably better than last year under Rich Rodriguez. They're bringing 33 transfer players and a much better recruiting class than they did a year ago. They also beat you at your place a year ago. And so they have at least that confidence. So how does that compare in the month at Baylor and ending the season, regular season at Baylor, and in the month at Baylor? I have no way to tell what Baylor will be. I don't think they'll be very good. But also after Houston beat them in 2023, I didn't think they'd be very good in 2024. And they were. They went 8-5 and played in the Texas Bowl. And I guess 8-5 because they lost in the Texas Bowl, right? But then last year they went 5-7. And I didn't think they were very good. And I guess venture to say that by next year. But they also add DJ Lagway, who's a recruit I loved out of high school. That was really, really talented recruit out of Willis, Texas. He's their transfer quarterback. Can he save Dave Aranda's career? Will this be a desperate Baylor team trying to win the last couple games here of the season to save that coaching staff? You get them at home at least. So as I compare these 2 months right now, I think the back-to-back road trips of November intuitively make it more daunting to me. But I almost worry that the actual quality of opponent with Utah and Oklahoma State might be more challenging in October. And I can't figure out, without having seen much more play or kind of worked it all out, exactly how this will play out as more, which month is more difficult for Houston. I will say last year, I thought it was going to be October. Houston did open up October by getting drummed at home, but ultimately actually had a more strenuous November after winning a couple games in October that I didn't know that I thought they were more challenging than they were, right? So we'll see how those kinds of things play out for Houston. I look at this as a schedule that in both months, I'd imagine they have a winning record. I think that it's a talented football team, and I don't know that there will be any month that they go less than 500. And I think they'll probably have a winning record in each month of the season. And that's frankly more of a testament to what we talk about. This team should win 10 games on the schedule. It's a testament to what they've built and what they've done. When we say that a team should win 10 games, that does add pressure. And I kind of want to investigate that pressure a little bit more. Like, does this team truly have to win 10 games? But first, Parker Ainsworth, Locked on Coogs here. Thanks for making us the first listen of the day. I said I'd like to investigate if Houston has to win 10 games this season. They were 10-3 last year. And this schedule, again, in terms of previous season win-loss record could be a lot worse. You are not playing several top teams in the conference from last year. You're not playing BYU, who was a second-ranked team in the conference. You're not playing either Arizona school, who finished the season. They both finished the season ranked, and they may take a step back. I don't know, but like theoretically, off of last year's team, would be difficult. Iowa State, well, they had a down year last year and lost their coach, was in the Big 12 title game the year before that. You missed that opportunity. Theoretically, you've got a couple games. You only got 2 teams on your schedule this year, I should say, going into 2026 that were ranked at the end of 2025. That's a good sign. There's a lot of reasons you ought to win 10 games next year, but do they have to? 10-3 last year. That's, and theoretically, if you're going to get better, that would be 11, right? And 10 in the regular season would be more than the 9 in the regular season last year. Sure. You also bring in the top-rated recruiting class in school history. Now, admittedly, they've been ranking classes for the last 30-ish years, and that doesn't go all the way back to the gloriest of glory days, right? But that's pretty impressive and pretty, it adds a lot of pressure to what happens. You've got Keisean Henderson, the number 1 player in the country, according to Rivals.com, right? The class is consensus top 40 in the country as a whole. It's got Ed Oliver type pizzazz. It's got a lot of the same kind of staying home and playing for Houston kind of pop, right? Does that add pressure to win 10 or more games? It might. You also brought in a top 40 portal or top 10 portal class, according to On3. Some places have them as high as 6th in the country in the portal class. You've specifically within that portal class, though, attacked specific needs. You went and got linemen like Marion Thomas, who started in SEC games. You went and got edge rushers like Ashton Porter from big-time programs. You went and got linemen that were all conference guys, best at their position in their conference to, play their way up to the Power 4 now. You got to get the Tulane connection with Mekhi Hughes. You got to get all these guys to pinpoint exactly what you needed. That's a good transport class. Does that add pressure? Do you have to win 10 games? You also, let's just be honest, return some of the key guys, right? You return Rashawn Sanford healthy. He was going to be your starting running back last year, and he tore his ACL in camp. Returning him, does that add pressure? You return Amare Thomas, a first-team All-Big 12 wide receiver. Tremendous impact in the latter 2/3 of the year, and then a big impact, obviously, in the bowl game. Does that add pressure? You bring back Connor Weigman. Connor Weigman is a 13-game starter who threw for 2,700 yards, 25 touchdowns, only had 9 interceptions. He also ran for 700 yards and 11 touchdowns of his own with his legs. That's adding more pressure. Do they have to win 10 games? I kind of feel like, yeah. Now, I don't mean to say like I'm like throwing the baby out with the bathwater if they win 9 games. I don't mean to say there aren't any circumstances where things could happen. Obviously, things shift, things change. That's why we talk to you every day about the Houston. You and I get to talk about them every day. So we'll be dealing with the changes as they happen. But do they have to win 10 games in the regular season to be successful? I think it's a fair question, given the success of last year. If they went 8-4, it might feel like a step backwards and a big slap in the face because of how many strides this team has taken. Now, could there be context added that change things and ship? Sure. But another piece of this also is, look, let's call a spade here. The last year's schedule and this year's schedule, in terms of previous year win-loss record, which is not a perfect indicator, but it's not a bad one, are not as challenging as they could have been. They're just not. 2027 likely will not be that. 2027, you open up the season with LSU and Lane Kiffin at NRG Stadium. That will be year 2 of Lane Kiffin. And let's just say if Kurt Signetti set a timeline and Lane Kiffin is getting the LSU money, and they just paid him a bunch of money for Ole Miss winning playoff games that he was not there for, there may be pressure to win it all in year 2 for Lane Kiffin. Who knows, right? You also, in terms of, you don't know when in the season you'll play them, but we know your opponents in 2027 will include Tech, BYU, Arizona State, Iowa State. And while Tech is the same, the latter three there are all teams you've avoided, in air quotes, this year and last year. I guess Arizona State last year, but I digress. Like, theoretically, that is a more daunting set of opponents in 2027. Things may change, things may shift. Maybe Oklahoma State in that Morris thing works out and they're really, really good. That's a really, really good win for Houston this year. That'd be awesome. But from the present tense, sitting here in January 2026, that 2027 schedule looks more difficult than this one. And if you're going to build momentum going into 2027, you need to show forward progress. You need to show recruits, show people in the portal, show donors, forward progress from 2025 to 2027. And that means, bluntly, winning more games. And it's hard to win. Once you hit that 10-win mark, it's hard to win more games. They went 10-3, but also they went 10-3 and dropped one they shouldn't have to TCU. And dropped one they probably shouldn't have to West Virginia. Look, the TCU game, the offense didn't show up. The West Virginia game, the defense didn't show up. On the whole, those were kind of the outliers. Sure. But, like, you could have won one of those, if not both. And if you did that, we're talking about a whole different kind of special season, right? A whole different kind of special expectations. You can't expect to replicate that. But if you're trying to get better next year, this team was 9-3 in the regular season. Stands to reason that being 10-2 is getting better. And like in a not outlandish, not out of the realm of possibility, very realistic kind of way. And look, I'm going to convince myself every week they're going to win. I'm going to talk myself throughout the week that they're going to win on Friday, Saturday, whatever day it is. Right now, they're all Saturdays. I'm going to talk myself into by the time I wake up Friday morning, they're winning Saturday. I do that every week. It's just what I do. And for its worth, I was right 10 out of 13 times last year. So, that's not bad. I just hope that we keep some level head as we go through it. Because while I'm excited right now and I see 10 wins happening, the truth is all progress is not quantifiable. And there's very visible, qualifiable progress being made. And we talk about all that progress here each and every day. It seems like portal things are closing down. So we may do some sort of a portal wrap up soon. Basketball, Houston Tech, big game this weekend. That preview content coming out your way very, very soon as well. So hit subscribe, help grow the channel. Let's keep making this thing as big as possible. And we'll get that to you as soon as possible. Hit the bell so you know when that stuff goes live. That would be great as well. Locked On Coogs is a prime member of the Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every day. Go Coogs.